Saw, a 2004 horror movie directed by James Wan and written by Lee Winnell, was a massive success in the box office, which caused numerous sequels to be released. The franchise has faced many accusations as being nothing more than torture. Was the franchise doomed from the start, or are they actually good? I'm Sippin Ice, and I decided to rank each and every one of them. Let's get into it. Welcome back. The Saw franchise has had some stinkers during its multi-year run, but it also had some great movies. Let's go over the tiers first, shall we? We have 5 tiers ranging from basically great to boo-boo. But I decided to change the titles of the tiers to
I want to play a game. Hello, Amanda. Let the game begin.
I don't think so.
and
Game over.
Before we get into it, I just want to give a massive spoiler warning as we will be discussing every movie, including the latest entry being Spiral. Let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree with me, and with that being said, let's dive on in. First up, we have Saw 5. Now this was kind of a hit or miss for me. This movie was released in 2008 and was directed by David Hackle. Let's get into the good first. Alright, now for the bad. I'm just joshing you. While not much, there is some good, and it's good, it's really good. I don't know about you, but Mark Hoffman was and will always be a highlight to this franchise. Granted, he's no John Kramer or Amanda, but with both of them being absent from the franchise since Saw 3, we were left with Hoffman, and I'm not mad at it. He's got that wild in him that I need. Another... What's that? John is still in the franchise after Saw 3? Yeah, you're not wrong at all, but that's only in flashback, so it doesn't really hit the same. We also have Detective Strom, which was cool, but that's actually where the good ends for me. I'll get more into the ending when I actually talk about the bad. But I will say them actually doing the deed and taking out a major protagonist was a perk. And yes, I enjoyed Strom, but every character will eventually run their course. Now I'm going to go ahead and get the worst part of the movie out of the way. The ending. Whoa, hear me out. In a typical Saw movie, we see a giant plot twist changing everything we thought we saw. In this ending, we get Agent Strom's oopsie. By the way, I'll be saying oopsie instead of death, which this oopsie was a wild one, but it didn't, nor should it, really be able to replace the great twist we have all become accustomed to. With no real twist, to me at least, dulls the movie out more and causes it to be more predictable. With all that being said, I think most of us can acknowledge how memorable the ending also was. While seemingly dull from the lack of a twist, that glass coffin will forever be sketched into our memories. And sadly for Strom, so will his oopsie in the crushing wall. I remember seeing that scene for the first time and wincing at his forearms, breaking. But with all that being said, I think it is time for the next movie.
Stop right there!
Before we continue, if you find yourself enjoying the video, please do consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more content like this. Do you enjoy tier lists? Well, I have ranked multiple franchises so far, and I will leave a link to the playlist down in the description. With all that out of the way, I just wanted to say thank you to each and every one of you. Now, let's get right back into it. Saw 3 is next up on the chopping block. Released in 2006, Saw 3 was the last to feature the duo of James Wan and Lee Winnell as director and screenwriter, respectively. The first thing I will say is I do like this one better than Saw 5, but it also has some flaws. Speaking of flaws, we have Jeff.
My name is Jeff.
A slow-moving and annoying protagonist that just makes everything worse. While yes, he did have a very sad and unfortunate circumstance with his son passing due to a drunk driver, but the movie never capitalized on the premise. In the end, Jeff's test was forgiveness. Did he pass? Not even close. Bro was a whole country a mile off from passing, and this failure to pass his test also resulted in the oopsie of his wife, a far better character who I was sad to see go. I do know if put into his position, forgiveness would be hard, but letting people have a little oopsie just because you couldn't find forgiveness? Come on now, come on, man. Also, John being taken out in just the third movie hurts, but I will say in their defense, they didn't know any more sequels were going to be made. And another part that's not bad, but it's not good either, is the major oopsie of Amanda as well. Saw 3 has a lot of upsides to it, but just not quite enough to move it into the Hello Amanda tier. For starters, it quite possibly has some of the best and twisted kills of the franchise in general. No, the best may not be in this one, but it's got a great handful of awesome ones. It also has some of the best emotional scenes in the franchise. You could tell Amanda truly cared for John up until the end. Lynn was a great character, tossed into an awful situation, so it's really awful to see her go due to Jeff's unwillingness to forgive, and it's just none of the major players could really pass their test, it seemed. Jeff and Amanda both, which, as sad as it was to lose Amanda, to me, it kind of made sense. Saw 3, with all its flaws, still held on to being a tragic story of forgiveness. But honestly, without the emotional aspect and the kills, I don't know if this movie would have made it to this tier, let alone past Saw 5. And yes, before I move on, I will acknowledge Allison Carey's oopsie. It was a wild one to watch and crazy to see her go so soon. She will be missed. This next one was released in 2017 and directed by the, sorry I've mispronounced this, Spyrig brothers, Michael and Peter. Based on this and the pictures I've been showing, you probably have guessed which movie is next. And you would be right. Next up, we have Saw 2. I'm just messing, it's Jigsaw. The movie that originally brought the franchise back from its long 7-year rest. But it wasn't that for me. Where this one loses it for me is it tries to be too serious with itself. Now, don't get me wrong, I love a good philosophical lesson from our boy John. But Logan is not him. He is not that guy.
Okay? You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
Okay.
Okay?
Are you?
Absolutely.
It doesn't allow itself to have fun, where the previous installments had Hoffman going wild. It was just fun and so over the top. Speaking of fun, the traps.
Huh?
Weird transition, but bear with me. Some of the traps were unique and awesome, while some were just not, quite there for me. An example of a great one was the spiral that Mitch had his little oopsie in. And Ryan's legs trap was kind of lame. Yeah, painful and gruesome, but compared to the rest of the franchise, come on, dog, lame. The ending was also so-so for me. Amanda and Ryan with the key to freedom. Yeah, I'll give it to him. I'll give it to him. Clever on Jigsaw's part, but it was extremely unfair for Ryan, which one could say it was mainly a test for Anna, who, as we know, is willing to do what it takes to protect her own skin. After she takes the shot, it destroys the literal key, dooming Ryan, and not allowing him a chance to win. His plot twist was kind of nice, though, in my opinion. It was definitely a new take, that's for sure. At the end of the movie, we see John Kramer is back alive. Well, not really. The twist is actually that the group was set before John's oopsie back in Saw 3. Some of the characters' oopsies were a little more predictable, but not as much of how or why, but when. For example, Carly. The trap that took her out was a little predictable and kind of bad. I kind of felt extremely bad for her during all of that. But it's not a terrible by no means, but it does have some bad weighing it down. Up next, we have the one that started it all. The 2004 smash hit and donned its own sub-genre. I think we all know where this one belongs. I mean, everyone knows that this one's a hefty banger. I recently dropped a poll asking you all to pick your favorite Saw, and as you can see, it won easily. Speaking of polls, I post tons of polls to get your thoughts because I value your opinions, so please consider checking some of those out. But Adam and Dr. Gordon are some of the best protagonists we have seen in the franchise by far. Their banter back and forth was pure gold. It's the simplest movie out of the bunch, and normally that would be a weakness, but here it's done in a clever way. The only thing that hurt, but not in a bad way, might I add, was Adam being left in the bathroom all alone, seemingly having an oopsie. On a side note, we actually do get to see his demise in Saw 3. But next up, let's talk about my boys Detective Tapp and Sing. This duo is underrated in the franchise, and in my opinion is only rivaled by Detective Strom and Perez. Losing Sing was one thing, but losing Tapp hurt the soul. Tapp failing his last test and being taken out by Zep was hard, but it would eventually be the passing of the torch to the upcoming police, that being Carey, Rigg, and Matthews. Circling back to the main fellas, I think we all know what happened to Gordon, but it was left open-ended whether or not he made it, Because the last we saw of him was after he deleted his foot with a saw and army crawled his way out. Sadly, without Adam. My poor Adam boy. Speaking of which, yeah, it's sad, but if Adam would have made it out alive though, then we wouldn't have gotten, arguably in my opinion, the best scene out of the entire franchise. The moment where the body in the middle of the room suddenly begins to rise, as Adam turns in shock to see Jigsaw standing to his feet, the mastermind of the whole game. He walks over to the exit, and just before he slams the door shut, sealing Adam's fate, he utters the franchise's most famous words, "Game over." I have goosebumps. But Adam's fate was truly sealed from the beginning because of how he was unfairly treated with the key going down the drain as he woke up. Another major plus to this movie was the casting, by the way. This has such phenomenal actors playing the roles, all the way from Danny Glover to Tobin Bell. Speaking of Tobin Bell, Bell himself has become an icon in the horror genre because of this movie. Not to mention Billy the Puppet, which, controversial, I see it more as Gideon because that's who he was made after, but he's technically called Billy the Puppet. Let me know down in the comments, is it Billy or Gideon to you? So how can this movie not be in the top tier? Knowing all that, how can it not be in the top tier? It's just too good of a movie. I mean, I don't know about you, but this list is shaping up real nice. But this will be the end of part 1. If you found yourself enjoying this part, then be on the lookout for part 2 by hitting that notification bell. As always, if you enjoyed, please consider hitting that like and that subscribe button for more content just like this. I truly appreciate every single one of you. Stay chill, and I will see you all next time.
Cause let's face it, baby, these days, you gotta have a sequel.